Hello, and in this video we are going to be looking at different verb types and some verbs that can be followed by the ing form of the verb and other verbs which are followed by a to infinitive verb. So first of all, we want to look at these different verb types. So imagine there are different types of verbs and we can categorize them by putting them into these boxes shown here. Now in the first box we might say we'll fill this box with verbs which are followed by ing verbs. You can see this is quite a large box, and here's an example. So imagine somebody says, I enjoy reading novels. So there you have the verb enjoy, and you can see that there's another verb following, reading. So whenever you use the verb enjoy, if it's followed by a second verb, the second verb will be ing. I enjoy reading, I enjoy cycling, I enjoy swimming, I enjoy getting up early and climbing mountains. Anything else you enjoy, the second verb will always be an ing form. Here are some examples of some of the verbs. Now this isn't a complete list. Of course there are many thousands of verbs, but here is a collection of verbs that will be followed by ing. Of course, if you want to press the pause and make a note of those, because we are moving on to the next box. And in this box we have verbs which are followed by a that clause. Now what do we mean by that? Here's an example. She confirmed that she was coming to the party. So the verb confirm is always followed by a that clause. You could not say she confirmed coming to the party. You cannot say she confirmed to come. That is not possible. She confirmed that she was coming to the party. So you've got that introducing a complete clause of she was coming to the party. Of course, quite often when we're speaking quickly, we tend to remove the word that from that clauses. She confirmed she was coming to the party, some people might say. And of course there is a huge collection of verbs here which can be followed by that clauses. You'll notice over here that we have suggest. Suggest can also be followed by an ing. She suggested eating the fish. She suggested that we eat the fish. So suggest is with a that clause or an ing. So just because these verbs appear in one of these verb type boxes doesn't mean that they only appear in the one box. Sometimes they appear in more than one box. The next box we're going to look at, verbs followed by a to infinitive. Here's an example. He chose to leave early. When you have the verb choose, it's followed by a to infinitive, to leave. You cannot say he chose leaving early or he chose that he would leave early. That is not possible. He chose to leave early. And again, here is a large collection of verbs which can go into that box. There may be many more, and of course some of these may also appear in other boxes. Here is another collection, verbs which are followed by an object plus the to infinitive. So we've just looked at verbs that are followed by to infinitives. Now these also take an object. For example, he persuaded me to buy one. You see me. The word me is included there. You could not say he persuaded to buy one. It takes the to infinitive, but we need the person that he is persuading to be mentioned in the sentence. He persuaded me to buy one. She persuaded him to buy one. They persuaded us to go to the party, etc. Persuaded requires the object before the to infinitive. Here is a collection of verbs which we might find in that box, and of course, make a note of that one. There is ask there. You could see that that is also in the to infinitive box. So she asked to leave, or she asked me to leave. Sometimes you'll put in the person that is being spoken to. Now let's look at this little box up the top here. These are verbs which are followed by either the ing or the to infinitive, and it makes no difference. It makes no change to the meaning. Unfortunately, you will see that that is a very small box up there. And I think in that box, as far as I know, we only have start, begin and continue. Maybe there are some more, but it's a very small box. So if we say it started raining, it's exactly the same as if I say it started to rain. There are two options. It makes no difference at all. You choose which way you like to talk. It started raining, it started to rain. It began raining, it began to rain. It continued raining, it continued to rain. But unfortunately, as I say, that's a very small box. This is the interesting box, and the very problematic box, because this box has verbs which can be followed by the ing or the to infinitive, but it has a change in the meaning, and these are the ones we need to look at. So let's begin with stop. Stop can be followed with the ing or the to infinitive, but there is a difference in the meaning. So before we go any further, there's something we need to look at. The to infinitive to show the reason for doing something. I went to the supermarket to buy some bread. Why did I go to the supermarket? Yes, to buy some bread. You see, the verb to buy is explaining the reason for going to the supermarket. Here's another one. I bought some bread to make a sandwich. You see, the verb to make is expressing the reason for buying the bread. Okay, to infinitive can show the reason. Now we'll return to the verb stop. Stop with ing. She stopped working. She was working and then she stopped working. So the ing verb here, working, is the activity which was stopped. He stopped driving. Driving, the ing form of the verb, is the activity which he stopped. She stopped working, he stopped driving. Now, let's look at some sentences with stop plus the ing and a to infinitive. She stopped working to have lunch. So we've got both verbs here. We've got working in ing and we've got to have lunch in the to infinitive form. So you can see the ing is still the activity which she stopped. She stopped working. To have lunch is the reason that she stopped working. So to have lunch is very similar to I went to the supermarket to buy some bread. That sentence. This is why I introduced that idea before. So we have the ing form, which is the activity. The to infinitive form is the reason for stopping. He stopped driving. Again, driving is the activity, but we can also add the to infinitive form to show the reason. He stopped driving to buy a newspaper. Ing for the activity, to infinitive for the reason. Now, let's look at some sentences where we have stop, but only with the to infinitive. She stopped to have lunch. To have lunch is the reason for stopping, as we've already seen. But where is the verb? What is the verb that she stopped to have lunch? She was working. She stopped to have lunch. So quite often we will get stop with a to infinitive to show the reason, but the verb that was stopped, the activity that was previously in progress, is sometimes in another sentence, or sometimes previous in the conversation somewhere. It is supposed that we would know what the activity was in a sentence like she stopped to have lunch. It is often implied by the context, but somewhere there is a verb, but it's not necessarily after the verb to stop. Okay, so sometimes we go straight to the to infinitive to show the reason for stopping, and you have to know what the activity was. The same as this one. He stopped to buy a newspaper. What was the activity? Well, it's somewhere else previously mentioned in the sentence. He was driving home and he stopped to buy a newspaper. Okay, so the ing form of the verb doesn't always appear after the verb stop. When we have the to infinitive to show the reason, you have to know what the activity was, and it's somewhere in a previous sentence or somewhere in the conversation. So stop can be with ing or to infinitive. Let's just look at a couple more examples so that you can see the difference here. We've seen she stopped to have lunch, so we know that a previous activity was stopped and the reason was to have lunch, and we know that she was working. But what if we say she stopped having lunch? So now having, the ing form, is the activity which she stops. So if we say she stopped having lunch, we might suppose that she was on a diet, for example, and she wanted to eat less. Or maybe she does not have much money and she is trying to save money. So this is why she stopped having lunch. In this case, the ing is the activity that she stopped. So you can see the difference between she stopped to have lunch and she stopped having lunch. And here's the similar example with the man with his newspaper. He stopped to buy a newspaper. To buy was the reason for stopping the activity. The activity was driving home. So there's a difference between he stopped to buy a newspaper and he stopped buying a newspaper. So if he stops buying a newspaper, this is the activity which he stops. So again, maybe he's trying to save money and he cannot afford to buy a newspaper every day. Or maybe he's got a smart phone and he's got internet access on his phone and he doesn't need to buy a newspaper anymore. So he stopped buying a newspaper because he could look at the news on his telephone. Now let's move on to the verb try with the ing or the to infinitive. Try, when it comes with the ing, is used for making suggestions with the question, does this help? So if somebody says, it's hot in here, oh, it's so hot in here, somebody else might suggest, try opening the door. So if you try opening the door, it implies that this may help with the problem that we have of it being very hot. We need some air flowing through the room. Let some cool air in and it might solve the problem, or it might help the situation. Try opening the door. try when it comes with the to infinitive is more like it's asking a question, is it possible? I'll try to open the door, but I might need a key. So there was a difference between try opening the door as a suggestion and try to open the door to see if it is possible to open the door. Here's another example. I'm trying to fix this radio. Trying to fix, to see if it's possible to fix, to repair, to mend the radio. And somebody might suggest, have you tried changing the batteries? So try followed by ing might improve the situation. This might be the solution to our problem. I'm trying to fix this radio. Have you tried changing the batteries? I'm trying to go to sleep. To see if it is possible to sleep, and somebody might make a suggestion. Try reading a book. So try with ing is the suggestion. Try with to infinitive is to see if something is possible. So that is a quick lesson on verb types. You see there are many different verbs that have different structures. That final box that we looked at with the verbs that are sometimes with to infinitive, sometimes with ing, those are the complicated ones. So there you've had a quick lesson on stop and try, and there are a few more that will come up in future lessons, but I think that's enough for today. I hope that was useful. Look out for part 2 of this series, this short series. We'll be looking at like to, like plus ing, need to and need plus ing. Also things like remember and forget with to infinitive and ing. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you've got any questions down below. Don't forget to follow the podcast, which we put out every Sunday, and I'll see you in the next video.